Hello, this is video training. This is Service Level 1, Chapter 3. Under this section, we're going to be covering posting mechanic time to a work order. Okay, let's begin. Just as in parts, there are multiple ways of doing this depending on your type of business. Let's go over the three major functions on posting mechanic time. The first method is if you typically are a dealership that works on smaller type jobs. Jobs where, the mechanic may write his time on the back of the work order and you don't post the time until the job is completed. That's typically used for people that work on relatively small jobs, jobs that don't take much more than a day or two. Obviously, there's a second method where you have a time clock for your mechanics. And you post the time whether the job is done or not at the end of the day or maybe first thing in the morning. So the mechanic fills out a time card. On that time card obviously has his name, and he puts, if he works on 5 different jobs, he'll put in all the different jobs and how long he worked on each one. And at the end of the day or at the end of the following morning, somebody, whether it be a clerical person or the mechanic himself, posts the time to the jobs that they worked on. The third method is if you use our time clock system. What we're going to be covering right now are the first two. Doing a relatively small job where you post it when the job is done, and maybe that's the type dealership you're running, or using a time card. Let's go into service. First method we're going to do is posting time for a mechanic, the first method, which is typically used for people that work on smaller jobs, where the mechanic is putting the time on the back of the work order. The work order is done now. The service manager then comes in, looks at it, and posts the time to the job. We're going in to update close RO. We'll type in an RO number. Let's just do 588. And there again, if you don't know an RO number, if you hit the Enter key, this is all my ROs. As we talked earlier, green means the job is done. If it's not done, obviously it's not green. Let's just pick this job right here. Okay, now all we're talking about now is adding time to a work order. For example, we have 3 jobs on this work order. We have a winterization, we're checking a shift cable, we're adjusting a cable, and we're doing a tune-up. If I wanted to add time, there are 2 different ways of adding time. One is adding time to an existing job on the work order, which is typically what you would do. And if that was the case, you'd select the job. The easiest way to do that, if you read the bottom of the screen, right-click to update the labor line or sublet line. Select line to look at all the service options. Let's just do a right-click. If we right-click, we'll have a screen that lists all my mechanics. This is the drop-down when you created the mechanic file in Chapter 1. All your mechanics will be listed here. So you would select the person that worked on the job. You would hit the Enter key. You would type in the amount of time they actually worked, 3.5. This is the estimate for the job, which was 2 hours that we did in Level 1 when we set the estimate up. We set the job up originally. It's telling me now that my cost for that job is $52. What do I want to charge? So I can see that I'm an hour and a half over what I thought I was. I thought I was going to charge $200. Maybe I need to change that to $300, which I can do. That's my tune-up. If I want to now put in a little bit of a description of what I did, you can move wherever you want to start your description, and you can key in whatever you need to key in. There again, this may be some type of a note basically saying what you had to do, why you're charging the customer $100 more than you anticipated, why did it take an hour and a half more than you thought. So this is something that you want to relay to the customer. Now, you can cut and paste, you can do anything you want here. If I want to do this and I want to copy it and I want to stick it down here, there again, you have complete Windows capabilities where you can cut and paste to anything you want. And let's just update it. Now, when you hit update, what we just did is all going to take effect. If we hit escape, it will basically go back to whatever it was before. No changes have been made. So we're going to hit update. Obviously, our charge now is $300. This why I designate that there's a description for this job. So we can click in here, take a look. Yes, we got 3.5 hours. Our estimate was 2. If you need to add a private note, maybe the mechanic little message that he doesn't want the customer to see. Hitting add private note allows you to add a private note. Let's concentrating on just putting mechanic time in. If I needed to put time on for these 3 jobs right here, I would easily just go in and right click, pick the person that worked, put the amount of hours that they worked on it. I'm going to charge 3 hours. This is an hourly charge, so the actual time was 3. If I'm going to keep that at 3, I don't need to type in anything else. All I really need to do is type in this one field. How long did somebody work? If that's all I need to do, then all I have to do is hit F12 if I don't need to put in a message, if I don't need to change the hourly, and that's done. So you right click, pick who worked on it, put in the actual time, hit F12 if that's all you need to do, and it's done. Very, very simple. So that's posting mechanic time to this particular work order to a job that you've already created. Okay, let's go in and post some time to a job that we've created. A different method. Let's suppose that we don't do it that way. We're a large company. We work on typically boat dealers. We work on larger jobs. They may take months and weeks and years. And so you want to post time as it occurs. Whether it's done or not is not important. You might have 10 or 15 people that work on a job, one particular job. So let's use another method. Let's go into mechanic posting. This is the method which you would use if you're posting from a mechanic time card. Hit mechanic posting. First thing you may want to do is select a mechanic. This is a drop down of all your mechanics. Let's just do Mike. Now I have Mike's time card on my hand. On his time card should have the work order number which he worked on, and the job that he worked on, and how long he worked. So assume that that's the case, and he worked on job 588. We're going to basically now, it's the same exact thing. Select line change for service options, or right click to update label line or sublet. So let's do this here. Let's go in and right click, and we're going to do the same thing. We're basically just saying, okay, how long did Mike work? Mike worked half an hour. Okay, that's all I want to change. I don't need to change anything else. I'm going to hit F12. Maybe he also worked on the shift cable. And there again, I'm selecting it with the mouse. Now, if you left click, you have all the options that you can do. I can delete a line. I can manipulate a price. I can no charge something. I can go in and update. I can add a private note. By and large, right click is probably an easier method. I'm still doing Mike, and maybe on this job he worked for 2.4 hours, and I'm just going to hit F12. I'm going to right click on here, and maybe he worked 0.5. Now notice, and I'm in F12. Notice what it's doing here. It's adding to that time. If you notice that tune-up, the actual time is 4 hours. If we right click and I just add another hour to it, and I'm hitting F12, notice it now says 5 hours. So it's accumulating the time as we go along. So every time we put time on here, it is going to add to that existing time. If I go in here and somebody else works on it and they work 0.5 and I hit F12, there again, that's all we're doing. Now if Mike worked on another work order, that's work order 600. That's Mike Dicker. Same thing. Maybe on this one here we worked 1.5 hours. Hit F12. There's my 1.6 hours. If you're not sure about the work order that he worked on, if you double click or you hit the enter key, it'll give you a listing of all your open jobs. So if you type in an invalid work order, or if you just hit the enter key on the RO, you can select whatever job that you want, and maybe he also worked on this one right here. And it's the same thing. If you want to add the time, we've added the time. Now, if maybe he had a note, you could also put the note on that job as you're doing this. So if on that time card, he basically wrote a note saying, hey, look, I need to tell you this happened, that happened. You may want to put that note. This is a note that the customer is going to see. If you want a private note, a note that you don't want the customer to see, obviously you'd hit private note. If the job is actually done and Mike is saying, look, I'm done with this, I finished it up, you can click here. When you click job is done, and we hit F12, now when we go in to the update close RO, it's going to be grayed out, and it's going to say that particular task is done on that job. Now, if we need to change mechanics, I posted all the jobs that Mike worked on. So I'm going to hit F1, change mechanic. We go back up here, and now let's do Dick. Now, Dick might have worked on the exact same job, so I'm just going to say, okay, Dick worked on this job here. And there again, you can hit the tab key and use the arrow keys that go up and down, or you can use the mouse, whatever you prefer. But let's say Dick also worked on this job. And I'm going to click here, and now there again, if you left click, you get this menu here. If you right click, you get this right here. So let's just say he worked another hour. That's all I'm going to type. There's no notes. I'm hitting F12. We added an hour to that. If he worked on this other job, obviously I would key in the RO number, or I would do a lookup, and maybe he also worked on this job here, this tune-up. Well, let's look at the tune-up. I am going to right-click, and maybe he worked another 2 hours. I'm not going to change anything here. That's not my job. Now we've got 7.5 hours on this job. So it's pretty simple. You put in you F1, pick the mechanic you're doing your time for, type in the RO number, select the job they worked on, and strictly just do this. Put in the actual time that they worked just for this particular day. If you don't need to add any notes, you're not going to mess with the charge time. That's it. You'll deal with that when the job is done. So it's pretty simple. When we're done with that, we get on there. Not so whether you're posting time through mechanic, which is a cumulative thing, or you're posting time through begin close RO. Now, there's one other thing. What about if we want to put time on a job that we didn't even put on the RO? Let's just cover that quickly. Let's pick an RO, and we'll pick this here. We'll pick Tom again. And suppose we call Tom up, and he said, yeah, you know what, you called me up, you told me about my brakes, I want you to fix my brakes. Initially, when I first came in here, I didn't want you to do that, but now I changed my mind, I want you to do it. And we've already done the job. So there's two ways of doing that. I can just go in here and put anything I want on this bill, whether it's a job that's already there or not. For example, there are two buttons here. Add new hourly, add new flat. Also over here, add new hourly, add new flat. The word new is important here. We're not updating a job that we already put on here. We're adding a new one to this work order. The customer said, I want you to do this, this, and this, and now he changed his mind. He wants to add some new jobs to it. And you know what? We can add the job and put the time on already. Many times, you'll call somebody up. They'll say, do it, you do it. Now what you're doing, you say, look, the job's already done. All I want to do is put who worked on it and how it worked. So let's just do that. If we do an hourly one, it's basically the same screen except we're creating a brand new job. The job is already done. We're not just putting it on a work order. We're saying Dave worked on it. He worked 1 hour. We're going to charge the customer maybe an hour and a half. We're charging them $85. If I want to change that, maybe I want to change it to $90. What did we do? We're adding a brand new job here. This is what we charged them. This is what we did. And, of course, we got to be able to spell, right? And there again, maybe we want to call this a brake job. And if you need to put in a big description, there again, you can put in a description as large as you want. If that's all I need to do, I'm hitting F12, and now it stays on this screen, so I can add as many jobs as I want with as much description as I want. When I'm done, I'm going to hit the escape key. Now that new job is on this bill. And that is an hourly job. It's the same thing if we do a flat. Pick the person that worked on it, pick the amount of time. What do you want to charge? $200. It's costing me $27. What's the description? And there again, you can put in the job code if you want to track that or not. If that's all I need to do, F12, hit escape. Now that new job is also on here. Notice this one here, which is grayed out. That's the one when we were posting mechanic time, we actually said the job is done, and that's why it's great. Okay, so that's another way of just adding a brand new job on. So now what we've covered here is basically adding time. Now keep in mind, if you're doing small jobs, and typically the way you do it now is you write your time on the back of a work order, and when the job is done, the service manager goes in here and he just puts in who worked on it, how long they worked on it, and that's it. This is the method you'd want to use. If in fact you're doing it from a time card, where you're posting at the end of every day or first thing the following morning. You may have the mechanic do it. You may have a clerical person do it. You want to use mechanic posting. Now, there are also other features in both mechanic posting and update close RO that we're going to be covering in the next section. Right, this section was only geared for just adding that time, whether you're using mechanic posting, whether you're doing it as just a closed, I want to finish up the work order when the work order is done. Small type jobs, big type jobs. Also, there's a third method, which is time clock. There again, look at the time clock video and it'll show you how your mechanics can badge in and badge out using the system, where they'll automatically log their time when they start a job and automatically log their time when they leave, and you won't have to post any mechanic time. The mechanics will be doing it when they begin a job and end a job. Okay, that concludes this section, posting mechanic time.